I left behind my six-figure career in tech, trading soul-crushing Zoom meetings for playing with sewing machines. So, did I make a terrible financial mistake, or is there actually any money to be made repairing sewing machines? I'm Lisa, and this is a series where I share everything I wish I knew before making the ultimate pivot into the world of sewing machine repair. Today, I'm sharing the real numbers that convinced me to go all in on sewing machine repair so that you can decide if a life of scraping gunk out of gears might be worth it for you too. Okay, I'm going to start with the big one. Sewing machine repair is a $2 billion industry. Yes, billion, with a B. If right now you're asking yourself, how is that even possible? $2 billion to fix sewing machines? I don't believe it. Well, I don't blame you. I was a bit dubious at first, but let me break it down. There are over 35 million people who sew in the United States. This is according to a study by SVP Worldwide. SVP is the manufacturers of Singer, Viking, and Pfaff. It's Pfaff spelled with a P. That's the P in SVP. So yes, SVP did this study. They found that approximately 35 million people in the US sew to some regular degree. And they also found that the average sewist has at least 3 sewing machines. And if you're like, really, why does anyone need 3 sewing machines? My guess is you probably don't sew, because let me tell you, they kind of start piling up if you're someone who enjoys sewing. And I know a lot of people that have many more than 3 sewing machines, might be including myself in that list. So that's over 100 million sewing machines in the United States alone. Let's be conservative and say only 20% or 20 million of those machines are used regularly, and they're machines that are worth keeping maintained and are candidates for service. 20 million machines at, let's say, a conservative estimate of $100 per service appointment. That's how you get to $2 billion a year. That's the total addressable market. Now, obviously, any one person or technician is only going to get a minute fraction of that possible available market. But here's what's interesting. So obviously, this is a massive opportunity that people aren't talking about, but there's this huge market gap. Most of the boomer generation of repair technicians who have those legacy skills are retiring out, and there are not enough people taking up the trade to fill that demand. So local service shops, if you can even find one in your area, they have wait lists of weeks, if not months long. And I'm not just talking about extensive repairs where parts need to be shipped from overseas and this and that. No, I'm talking standard service, cleaning and oiling of a working machine. Even those services are very backed up. The demand is still very high. And maybe you're asking yourself, well, is sewing really still a big opportunity? Like, isn't that a granny hobby? And isn't this going to be declining when that generation passes? I assure you that isn't the case either. That same study I referenced earlier by SVP found that sewists are actually getting younger. 65% of sewists, this is a study that was done in 2020, 65% of sewists were under 30 years old. And actually, the average age decreased from 48 to 37 between 2004 and 2020. So sewing is not just a granny hobby. It's definitely not going away anytime soon. So to recap, we have a massive market opportunity with increasing demand and basically decreasing competition. So that's the good news. Some bad news I want to be clear about. Sewing machine repair is definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a skilled trade, and developing those skills and expertise absolutely takes time and effort. It's not passive income by any means. It's literally you're trading your time and your labor for money. So we know there's demand out there, but how much can you actually earn as a sewing machine technician? I wish there was an easy answer to this, but it's definitely tough because there's a wide range of factors that can influence a technician's salary. Are you an owner-operator, or are you an assistant working for an hourly wage in a big sewing center? Are you doing this full-time or just a few hours a week to supplement your retirement income? Maybe you have niche specialized skills. Like if you do commercial embroidery machines, you're probably going to be charging a lot higher than if you were just doing modern domestic machines and work out of your home. So knowing that there is this variability and it is very variable in terms of potential income, I want to share my own sort of formula or approach for how I thought about pricing my own services and what my potential income could be as an owner operator of my own sewing machine service business. So what do we do first when we are launching a business and trying to figure out our pricing and how much money we can make? We're going to do some market research with the help of my secret shopper, aka my lovely 75-year-old mother. Hi, Mom. We contacted all of the local sewing machine repair shops in our area. And then we also asked what their average turnaround time is, because that will also indicate to you sort of what the demand is in the area. If everyone you contact has a turnaround time of 2 to 3 days, maybe there is more competition in your area. But if you're getting quotes of, multiple weeks or even months long, there's a lot of demand in the area and there's plenty to sort of carve off for yourself. So for my case, I learned that the typical wait time in my area was around 4 weeks. So yay, high demand, not a ton of competition. And the average service price I was getting quotes for was around $135. So let's say a skilled, experienced technician can service up to 15 to 20 machines per week. After talking with a few experienced technicians, this seems to be an achievable number. Definitely not achievable out of the gate, but this is a good target in terms of what your full-time capacity could be. Let's say that technician is working full-time. They can do 20 machines per week or 80 per month at an average rate of $135 per machine. That is over $10,000 in revenue each month. So annually, that is nearly $130,000. I mean, that's a pretty impressive number, $130,000. Now, that's revenue, right? That is not take-home salary. That is not accounting for overhead, which could be as low as a couple $100s a month or as high as a few $1,000s a month if you have a storefront and are keeping a lot of inventory. And this also does not include taxes. So realistically, this owner-operator technician is going to probably take home closer to $75,000 after overhead and taxes are considered. Again, that's if they're working full-time at capacity and are charging a minimum of $135 per service. So, Lisa, you've been in business for over a year now. Are you on track to make 6 figures in revenue this year? No, I am definitely not there yet. Right now, what's keeping me from having that 6-figure year? I have a lot of growing I still need to do that's going to allow me to move faster and get more capacity. I don't have decades of experience under my belt. I have not seen every model under the sun. Sometimes I will have to reach out and consult with other technicians. Fortunately, I'm a member of Sewing Doc Academy, which gives me access to a wealth of resources, including the ability to ask other pro technicians for some consulting and support when I need it. That is absolutely a godsend in terms of giving me the confidence and ability to move a bit faster than I would certainly without that support. But I still need to get, more reps under my belt in order to decrease my average time per machine. Right now, it takes me between 3 and 4 hours per machine to fully service it. So I could do about 2 machines a day or 10 a week. So in order to unlock those 6-figure years, I would need to essentially, double the throughput, which I currently have. Now, I think that is certainly doable with time and skill, and especially if I have other people supporting me doing admin work and then that type of thing in the future. There is a fair amount of admin work that comes with this. You're photographing the machine, you're documenting what you did, you're messaging clients, sending invoice, answering follow-up questions. And being a solo business owner also means you have to spend time on things like your website or social media, talking to your accountant, and a lot more. And I'm still new to this business, right? I've only established myself a year ago. And while my website, my Google business profile are bringing in a fair amount of leads each week, I'm still new to the local scene and working on establishing my reputation and capturing that demand. If you're still watching, and thank you if you are, by the way, and you're thinking, well, Oh, you're talking a lot about yourself and you're being kind of vague with your numbers, Lisa. What about those real numbers you promised me? Well, I've got a tool to help you out. I put together this income estimator calculator tool. It's a spreadsheet with a formula. Let's not get crazy here. It's not that fancy. But anyway, go ahead, grab your own copy. I have it linked in the description, and I will meet you at the computer. I'll give you a quick tour, and then let's actually kind of walk through it and run some scenarios. I think this will give you a good estimate of sort of the realm of possibilities in terms of income for an owner, operator, service technician. I have this split up into 3 tabs. What's the first thing we're going to do? That's right, market research. This is going to help us understand what the demand looks like in our area and what the current pricing market looks like so we can determine how to establish our own baseline pricing, at least for the purposes of estimating. A lot of factors are going to go into how you actually price your own services, but this is a starting point. Tab number 2, we're going to add in some estimates for our startup and our recurring overhead costs. And then the third tab is the good stuff. We're going to establish a monthly income goal and then like a weekly capacity goal, because I think those ranges are easier to work with. And then the tool is going to run some calculations and help us understand if our income goals are actually feasible with the different capacity and pricing scenarios. So let's give it a shot. Here's a really simple way to do some market research, and we're going to start where most people do, which is heading over to Google. So let's do that. And let's type in sewing machine repair need. Let's see what we get. This is actually an important thing to note, that because I'm doing a local search, Google is prioritizing these maps results. So it is very important as a business to have your business listed in Google Maps. So we're going to get to Google Maps. We're going to find at least 5 businesses. And you're going to find a range of different businesses. There'll be a mix of quilt shops that offer service, sewing machine centers. There may be standalone sewing machine repair shops. And there's also going to be a list of individuals who are working out of their home and may not have a storefront, which is actually what I'm doing right now. Oh, and there's going to be vacuum shops as well. So that could probably be a whole separate video on why sewing and vacuum sort of go hand in hand. But yeah, keep an eye on the vacuum places because they may also be your local competition. All right, so give, I would say, at least 5 of these places a call. Now, if you can't come up with a list of 5, that's probably a good sign. That means there's not a lot of people offering this in your area. Okay, so time to call the shops. First thing, we have to know what we're going to say, right? So pick a machine or maybe 2 machines that you want to get quotes for. So when I called shops, I asked about a 70s era Kenmore and a modern computerized Janome. I wanted to understand what they would charge for both styles of machine. So if you plan on only doing vintage, maybe you only want to get a quote on vintage machines, something to think about there. So we're going to call them. We're going to get a price quote on each machine. And we're also going to ask what their turnaround time is. And now if every place you call is giving you a quote of 2 to 3 days to turn around a machine, you may be in an area that has a fair amount of competition, and therefore maybe you need to price yourself differently or narrow in on a specific niche. Maybe there's nobody doing industrial or embroidery machines where you live. So something to think about. There's demand out there. You just kind of got to find your niche. That being said, you're probably going to get a lot of quotes of like 2, 4, 6 weeks. There's a shop near me where they're quoting people 4 weeks, but I have heard from some of my customers that they have gotten frustrated and picked up their machines after it's waited there for months. So keep in mind, too, that the quotes they're giving you may not be accurate to their actual backlog. All right, so we plug in these numbers and we can, adjust these to whatever our quotes were, and we're going to get a market average. And then, again, this is for the purposes of just estimating. I want you to think about how you might price yourself differently based on what that market average is. So if you are brand new, you just really want to build up your clientele and improve your own skills, I would probably select the newbie here. Let's price ourselves roughly 25% lower than the local competition. That may or may not be the right number for you, but that's what I am using as my benchmark here. And then I have this yellow one here I'm calling apprentice. So maybe you're a little bit more established, applying a 15% discount. And then for somebody who's maybe more skilled, has more years of experience, and wants to price themselves more competitively, we're not applying a discount. And in fact, maybe I'll add like a multiplier here. So if you have more advanced skills, you can charge a premium for those services. All right, so let's move on to tab 2. This is where we're going to enter our startup and overhead costs. Now, again, this is for high-level estimation purposes. You are welcome to keep in the placeholders I have in here or adjust it based on what you anticipate your business situation might look like. For example, if you're like, I'm going to do this and have a storefront and I know I'm going to have to pay $700 a month in rent, we should up your monthly fixed overhead costs. In practice, especially if you're going to be building out a full-fledged business plan, you're probably going to line item a lot more than just these few things here. But this is just high level to help you start thinking about what it might cost to start this business. But again, this is really to help you do some of those high level estimations to see if this is a path you even want to pursue. So let's kind of talk through this. So under startup costs, I have training and education. Certainly, if you're going to go into this field, investing in your training is extremely critical. I have $249 here as the placeholder price because that's the cost of Sewing Doc Academy's core program. Because I knew I wanted to pursue this as a business, I found it was worth to go ahead and invest in the full maintenance program, which is $570. And actually, you can get it cheaper than what I paid because I have a discount code, which I will leave in the description. Tools and materials, this is really going to vary depending on kind of what you have already, but you don't need to invest in a ton to start. I think the biggest thing I had to invest in was an air compressor, which I think I got for around $115 or so. And then like a set of screwdrivers and some sewing machine oil and some shop towels. Like it wasn't a ton you needed to get started. You'll add more as you go. There's always fun new tools to try out and see if they can speed up your process a little bit more. But really, you can get started with very minimal tools. So I think this $200 price point, you can do a lot with $200. And then other startup costs, this is kind of the catch-all bucket. I put $500 here, but this is, again, is really going to depend on your situation. This could include your LLC filing fees, initial setup for a website. Maybe you need to get a printer or a computer for your business. Like, whatever it is, there may be some other initial costs that you want to capture here. Okay, let's talk recurring costs because this is actually more important in terms of estimating our monthly revenue and income. So the first category I have under here is consumables per machine. So consumables, if you haven't heard this term before, this is all the stuff that you kind of use up every time you service a machine. These are things like your cleaning tools, your shop towels, your sewing machine oil, your Q-tips, and I use a lot of toothbrushes in my service business. Then replacement needles. You always got to leave a fresh needle with a client. And bobbins. Quite often a machine will come in either without a bobbin or with the wrong bobbin is pretty common as well. So having a stock of bobbins and being able to provide one to the client. So I consider bobbins a consumable. This isn't something I'm charging the client for. Unless it's something rare or a client wants to buy a whole cart of bobbins, I'm usually not charging the client for this. So I am adding that into my consumables cost. You'll notice what's missing from here is parts. Now, please do not go and stock up on a giant inventory of parts right out of the gate. It just really isn't necessary. Most machines that come in aren't going to need parts. And you really don't need to have all the inventory on hand. What I do is if I order a part for a client, typically I'll order 2 or 3 of them so that I have some in stock the next time that part is needed, if I think it's something that will get used. But I do not carry a huge inventory. It's just really not necessary, especially when you're starting in this business. Okay, so the final important one here is monthly fixed overhead. So again, $250 here is a placeholder. This can vary very widely. If you know you want to open a storefront and you're going to have $1,200 rent payment each month, let's make this number a little bit higher. But like my monthly overhead probably isn't even $250 right now. And I actually have quite a bit of like software subscriptions and other stuff that you may not want or need on day one. Okay, let's get to the fun stuff now. So while this looks like a whole lot, there's really only a couple fields we really want to pay attention to. The cells highlighted in green are where we can make adjustments on this tab. The other cells, the gray cells, are either doing a calculation or they're pulling information from the previous tabs. And then down here, this little reality check section, this will basically tell us if our goal is achievable based on our pricing, our costs, our capacity. This is our little gut check. Okay, so the three fields to take a look at is the monthly take-home goal. This is where we're going to enter what we hope to make in a given month. Max capacity. So this is how many machines per week we think we can do. I know it's a little confusing kind of going from month to week, but I think most of us think about how much money we need to make each month in order to pay the bills. So I have that estimated in months. And then your weekly machine service capacity is this next number. And then the other green one that you may or may not want to change is how many weeks you plan on working per year. And it will consider that in the calculation. All right, so for this first example, let's say we are a retiree who wants to bring in just a few $100s to kind of cover grocery costs. Inflation's out of control. We just want to kind of do this as a side income in our retirement. Let's say our monthly take-home goal is $800. And we could say, well, actually, I think I'm only going to be able to do 3 a week. And then these estimated service price, the consumables, and the overhead are all pulling in from previous tabs. So maybe actually $130 seems too high for this person who is just a beginner. We can go back to our pricing tab and let's apply the newbie discount here. That dropped our service price to $98, which I have here. And then, we'll still keep our consumables. And, we're probably not going to have $250 a month overhead if we're only servicing 3 machines a week and our goal is $800. So let's say in this scenario, our monthly fixed overhead is, $50. That's for maybe a website and your phone bill or something like that. So with those adjustments, our calculator is still saying our goal is achievable. We could bring up to an additional $10,000 that year just by servicing 3 machines a week. And if we remove our annual overhead, that leaves us $9,600 of net pay. Important caveat, this calculator is not taking into consider taxes because that can vary so much depending on your income and where you live and a lot of other circumstances. So make sure you know what your tax obligation is because you do not want to be surprised by that bill come tax time. So let's try one more thing, and I think we can probably wrap it up here. Let's go a bit bigger. I want to bring home $10,000 a month. That's really what's going to pay the bills around here. And I am up to 12 machines per week. Let's say 12. Let's see what happens with 12. And we'll leave our service price at $130. I think we're going to have to increase our overhead costs here. I think more realistic, let's say 200, not 2,000. Let's say 200. We're still working out of our home, but we are hustling. So 12 machines with that amount of overhead. It's telling us it exceeds capacity. So, and in fact, it's saying if you really want to make $10,000, you actually need to do 20 machines a week, not 10, Lisa. Certainly not at this rate. Is that a little disappointing? Yes, but that means I now have a goal of trying to get to 20 machines per week. So then you can see how you can maybe start playing around with the numbers to see how can you get to a certain goal. I hope this tool will help illustrate sort of what is possible, what isn't, or what changes you would have to make in order to reach your goals doing this type of work. The other thing to keep in mind too is this is really just covering your service fee revenue. This doesn't go into things you might be doing to supplement your income, like selling used machines that you've fixed up or or sourcing and selling parts or teaching classes, whatever it might be. A lot of people who are doing this work are also doing other types of things to increase that ticket price or offer other things of value to the sewing community. So that's the tool. I hope it was useful. For now, though, I'll meet you back in the workshop and we'll wrap things up. All right. So I hope this conversation has given you some insights into what is possible in terms of making money as a sewing machine repair technician. So the next step is going to be seeing how this applies to your own goals. And I think the smartest thing you can do is kind of run the math for your own situation. So grab the calculator tool if you haven't already. And I also want to know what questions you guys have about sewing machine repair as a business. I'm trying to use this series to answer all of the questions I had when I first started out. And granted, that wasn't that long ago. So I still have so much to learn, but I really want to share and learn along with you as I build my business. So yeah, hit me up in the comments and I'll see you in the next one.